Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and I'm looking today at a book from Spiramus Press, which is in the European series covering both law and taxation. This one actually deals specifically with European employment laws, now in a second edition, and it's been written by Stephen Hardy and Mark Butler. That's the book at the front, nice picture of the flag. You've got the details of the book itself on the back cover. The book is actually interesting. There's a good index, country by country, at the back. What you have got are useful paragraph numbering, which you can see at the sides there, and the individual chapter headings cover the countries. That one's Spain. What you've got is the book is split into two parts. The first part is posting workers in the UK, and the second part is EU27 employment laws, which is the bulk of the book itself. There's also a useful content section at the front, and it is worth reading both the preface and also the foreword, which was written by the, if I can find it in a minute, an excellent foreword written by Eleanor Sharpston, Queen's Counsel, who's an Advocate General of the ECJ. It's a useful book because it points you in the right direction immediately. Now, my wife Elizabeth and I have written a review of this book, and we've given it a rather long title: For EU Lawyers, HR Practitioners, Academics and Eurobuffs. It's an accessible, readable outline of employment law in each of the 27 EU member states, and that's really what this is about. And it goes way beyond what I did, which is some 25 years or so ago now, the social chapter and all the other stuff that we were dealing with when we were much younger in terms of the way in which the EU was going, or the old EEC as it was, in terms of social law. And I think we're now looking much more at the direction we're going in politically, and this of course is a legal book which tries to build on the political direction which the member states have taken us. So let me just give some indication of what we think of this book. Before the first edition of it was written, the researching of its subject matter, not to mention the actual writing of it, was considered impossible, what with at least at that time 25 EU member states to contend with, and the differing traditions, languages and legal systems. However, putting together an account of the employment laws of all member countries of the EU and presenting them in the form of a readable, accessible narrative is precisely what the two authors have achieved, and a feat to which Eleanor Sharpston, who I referred to, has rightly paid tribute. Bearing in mind that this is the direction we're going in within this century, decade by decade, things are going to change. We will start getting some form of harmonisation. Clearly that's going to happen. It's going to take a very long time. Obviously the book can't deliver detailed legal advice on specific matters in its less than 300 pages. It is rather an excellent starting off point in our view for those who wish to explore a particular issue or aspect of European employment law and or the employment laws of particular European states. And as I say, each one is listed, so you've got a good idea. The UK is, for instance, right at the end, towards the end of the book. The authors therefore refer to it as a comparative guide rather than a definitive guide, which they modestly insist it is not. So the new second edition, published last year in 2010 by Spiramus, begins by reviewing the ways in which labour laws have evolved within the EU, and it examines the varying regional approaches to employment and social welfare, very much part of the EU's work. And it considers the numerous pressures for change in line with the controversial process of creating social Europe. And the handiest part of the book is the summary and outline set employment regulations in each of the now 27 EU states, and that's actually the part 2 bit, if you like. There's a further section, of course, covering future EU enlargement if and or the two aspirant states, Turkey and Croatia, join. It's useful to check the table of contents, which is at the front. You've got some idea of the areas that are being covered. I think it's enlightening to be able to compare almost at a glance the differences and similarities in employment legislation between the diverse member states. I think that's a great achievement. I say that actually looking at it from a historic point of view, bearing in mind 2 world wars and all the other things that led to the build-up of what we now have today. Something many people have forgotten, of course. It's also heartening to note that, as a requirement of EU membership, each member state has had to bring its system of employment laws, despite variations, into line with EU standards. That must be the forerunner of some international legal systems that we've got to have within the world in the next 100 years or so. Surely this is the start of, and that's why this book, in terms of its vision, is quite interesting. So, if you're an employment lawyer or HR practitioner faced with cross-border employment issues, or you're in charge of employment policy in a European country, for instance, this book will help you understand, and it's hoped, avoid the various pitfalls and obstacles inherent in the many regional variations in employment law throughout the member states, and the practice, of course, itself that they adopt. And for further research, of course, the book provides useful lists of cases, sources and relevant websites to make it accessible as a readable outline of the subject that it undoubtedly is. I'm very grateful to have this, because I'm sure, having been involved many years ago when we started looking at this, really more at a political than legal level, I'm delighted to see we're actually making some progress. It's going to take time, but we're going to get there. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.